I've done a lot of villains as lanterns videos lately, and I've even gone as far as to do one for Spider-Man, and I don't do Marvel content on this channel. Now, I've seen some comments of people saying I should do this same video, but for the heroes. And yes, whereas we have seen more of the popular heroes have their shot at being lanterns in the past, such as Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and so on, I'm going to take this from the perspective of other hero characters who haven't ever had their chance at a ring, or if they have, it's been a long time since that happened. So this video is going to start off with the Superman family. Now, of course, his family is not as big as, say, the Bat family. However, I did manage to scrounge up 10 characters that I'm going to go through. So let's start off with the first one. So that first character is, of course, going to be Superman. Now, before I give you my options, Superman has been lanterns before. He's been a blue, he's been a white, he's been a yellow. But here are the three that I think perfectly suit him: blue, green, and white. Very fitting to Superman and the rest of his family. Expect to see a lot of blues thrown in here. I think this is very self-explanatory why Superman would be a blue lantern. He is a huge indication of hope. That is a lot of what he is supposed to inspire in a lot of people. However, I also have an option for green as well, because to be hopeful, you also need to have willpower. And even right now, I'm currently writing part 3 of a what if Kal-El was essentially a Green Lantern. And a lot of who Superman internally is could be well fitted for Will. And then white for Superman I think also makes sense, because in a way he is almost an embodiment of life. And even more so than that, he is a collection of all emotions stabilized. He has control over a lot of them. Now, I know in history we've seen an overly good Superman to the point where it's annoying, and we've seen a lot of evil Supermans in the past. I do believe that a veteran Superman, someone who's maybe been doing the job for, say, 20 years or so, he would have enough experience under his belt to know how to take control of all emotions. Next, we're gonna go with Supergirl, and for her, I only have one ring, and that would be blue. The reason why I only use that as an option is because, once again, like I said, expect a lot of these characters to be blue. But more particularly, as for her, I do believe she takes so much after her cousin. When she looks at Superman, she needs to be the female version of that character. When Superman inspires hope, she needs to inspire hope. And if Superman ever trails off in any way, Supergirl is there to pick him back up and to remind him that hope is the center of what they believe in. Next, we have Lois Lane, and I placed her as green, whereas I'm not a big fan of the Lois Lane character, never have been and probably never will be. What I will admit is that her willpower can be off the charts. She never stops. She keeps on going and keeps on going with what she believes in. She puts herself in some of the stupidest, most craziest danger, but it's the willpower she has that keeps her doing it. You could make an argument that Lois would also be a good Star Sapphire because of the love she has for Superman, and as they get a little bit older, they have children of their own, but I personally just think that willpower outranks anything for her. Next, I have Superboy, and this is Connor, the clone of Superman and Lex Luthor, and because of that, I have two options: blue and orange. Blue, once again, because that is the value of the Superman family, but also being trained by Superman very closely and literally having a percentage of the exact same blood as him. Hope is going to be somewhat an internal thing for him. But then when you look at it at the other side of Lex Luthor, when I made the Superman villains as lanterns video, I gave Lex Luthor the ring of orange, greed. And because of that, I think Connor might inherently have some of those I guess you could say, poor qualities of Lex Luthor. I actually think Connor's a little interesting because you could do a multitude of answers for him. There could be yellow, green, red, even an ultraviolet in the conversation for him, but I think blue and orange is what I would stick with. Now we have Powergirl, who I also have as 2 different rings, and those rings are blue and green. Once again, blue is very self-explanatory. However, for green, this is my reasoning. I don't know how they necessarily do it in comic books within Rebirth, but I do remember that Earth 2 at one point was inherently a weaker universe than the Prime Earth, the main Earth that we always read. So when she came to the main continuity Earth, she was of course still crazy powerful, but not as powerful as, say, some of the other Superman family members. I have her as green just based off of this idea that she needs the willpower to maybe stand tall, prove that even if you are only 80% of the strength they have, that you can keep going. And I do think Powergirl, who by the way I've personally always liked more than Supergirl, she could utilize both rings at the same time, blue and green, which at that point would just inherently make her a lot stronger than everyone else. Now we have another Superboy in Jonathan, which is the actual biological son of Superman and Lois Lane. And for him, I gave him 2 colors as well, blue and white. Pretty much, I think Jonathan is just someone who can really identify with his father and will literally take after his father in every single way. As long as Superman has his way and raises this boy the way he was raised, and he grows up the way Clark grew up, and he learns the ways of Superman, that way when Clark gets older and Jonathan becomes the new Superman, as long as everything stays the same, I think blue is the perfect fit for him. And if he can conquer all the emotions the way I believe a veteran Superman can, so will Jonathan. Like father, like son, essentially. Now we have Steel, who in a way is the literal Man of Steel. For him, I only have one option, and that option is green. This is a guy who lost his parents, but never let it truly hold him down. That's not saying he wasn't broken up about it, but he never let it stop him from becoming something more, becoming something special. Seeing Superman and believing in the hope he brought to Metropolis, when he died, he figured out a way to become the city's new Man of Steel until he came back to life. And I do think there is an argument to be made here that blue is what drove this man to do what he did through his life. And that is absolutely a valid argument, but I do think willpower plays a lot more into this equation, considering having willpower makes you push forward in what you believe in, no stops ahead, keep going until you get to that point. And the great thing about Steel is his willpower never diminished when his parents died, his willpower never diminished when he became Steel, and his willpower never diminished when Superman came back. He might not be the strongest Superman family member out there, but he definitely has his uses. He certainly can do things and has things other people don't, and he's a reliable person to have around. So for the 8th character, it's going to be Superman from China, Kong Kenan, or Keenan. This was a character who, when growing up, wasn't actually the nicest person out there. He was kind of a bully, but he always looked up to Superman. And it wasn't until he got the powers of Superman that he finally decided he would stand up for what Superman stood up for. Now, I do have 2 options for him, and that's blue and red, and here are my reasons for this. Blue, because his idol was Superman, you obviously want to recreate what your idol creates in some sort of way. However, for red, I did throw that in because he can be quite brash. He moves in aggressively and with force without thinking of the best possible ways to handle situations. And I do think sometimes that Kong's aggressive nature can get in the way, making him a Red Lantern. Now, for for the last two characters are characters I really don't know too much about, but I'm still gonna try my hand at them. The two twins, Otho-Ra and Osul-Ra. They're descendants of Kryptonians centuries later of leaving Krypton and inhabiting another planet. And these are two kids who had to endure the hardships of Warworld and Mongol. Starting with the sister, Otho-Ra, I have her as two, Star Sapphire and Red. Star Sapphire is the one option because of her love for her brother, and pretty much anything she seems to do is in the defense of her brother. As for Red, it's because she can also be quite aggressive. She's certainly not that good with change, and I think she does carry a lot of PTSD from Warworld. As for Osul-Ra, I'm gonna only have one option for him, and that is Star Sapphire, because I think love is the most important emotion for that character. I think we could also make an argument for Blue as well, and I would 100% see that, but I do think a lot of the stuff he does is just based off of love for his sister or love for his adopted family. And of course, when you're siblings, two brothers, two sisters, brothers and sisters, you're likely to be very protective of one another. But when you're twins, I think that is elevated to a whole nother level. And a lot of the times, being protective or overly protective can be a sign of love. So there it is, everyone. 10 members of a Superman family with potential lantern rings. Now, there are of course other Superman family characters that have existed out there, people who at one time have been in and out of the family. So because of that, put in the comments below characters maybe I didn't mention and what lantern corps you think they would belong in. Also, comment other groups of characters that you'd potentially like to see me do this same treatment for. But everyone, that is all I have for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.